They say the West was built by men with guns, but every legend begins with a truth no one wanted told. Before the blood, before the fear, before the whispers carried by the wind, there was a woman standing alone in the dust, holding a past that refused to stay buried. Her name was Clara Bell, and this is where the lie about her truly begins. Clara was not born dangerous. She did not wake up craving violence or dreaming of revenge. She learned it slowly, painfully, in a land where love was a promise made easily and broken without consequence. The West had a way of teaching lessons without warning, and Clara was paying attention long before she understood the cost. She followed him west, believing words could build a future stronger than bullets. He told her the desert meant freedom, that dust erased history, that together they would become untouchable. She believed him, because believing felt safer than doubt. But the West does not forgive belief. It feeds on it, strips it bare, and leaves only what can survive. Trouble never knocked. It arrived wearing badges, guns, and smiles that never reached the eyes. Deals were made in whispers, names traded like currency, loyalty measured by convenience. When the cost became too high, Clara became the payment. Not an argument, not a debate. A solution that made everything easier for everyone else. They left her at the edge of nowhere. No water, no horse, no mercy. Just the sun burning her skin and the silence screaming what he never had the courage to say. She was not worth saving. The desert watched without judgment as her strength faded and the horizon swallowed every promise she once trusted. That was the moment Clara Bell died, and something else took her place, something quieter, colder, something that understood a simple law of the frontier. If the world refuses to protect you, you either disappear or you become the danger everyone learns to respect. She walked for hours that felt like days, each step tearing away the woman she used to be. Memories turned into weight, promises hardened into rage. Every breath tasted like dust and betrayal. By the time she reached the next town, she no longer asked for help. She observed, she listened, she learned. Men noticed her before they understood her. They always did. Beauty was a language the West spoke fluently. They saw the red of her dress before they saw the steel in her eyes. They mistook silence for weakness and calm for obedience. And by the time they sensed the truth, retreat was no longer an option. Clara learned quickly which smiles were lies and which hands drifted toward guns. She learned who would sell you twice if given the chance. She learned that kindness was often bait. She spoke little and remembered everything. When she finally chose a weapon, it was not out of anger, but certainty. The first man she killed did not scream. He looked surprised, as if the thought had never crossed his mind that she could be the end of his story. The gunshot echoed longer than the sound itself, and something shifted in the town that night. Fear found a new shape, and it wore her name. After that, the whispers followed. Outlaw, temptress, devil in silk. Clara did not care names were for gravestones. She cared about memory, about making sure no one ever forgot what happens when they mistake a woman for weakness in a land that only respects consequences. Somewhere between gunsmoke and dust, a symbol began to follow her, carved into wood, folded into letters, spoken quietly by people who never saw her face, a mark that meant survival and warning at the same time. Clara did not yet know she was not the only one who carried it, because legends do not rise alone, they collide, they gather. And the road Clara Bell walked would soon lead her somewhere unexpected, not to love, not to redemption, but to a house standing against the desert wind, where 7 women would turn survival into legend. The town did not know what to do with Clara Bell. Fear travels faster than truth in the West, and soon her name carried weight she never asked for. Doors closed sooner. Conversations lowered their tone. Men who once stared now looked away. Respect in the frontier was never given. It was earned through consequences. Clara understood something most never did. Violence alone does not create power. Memory does. The West remembered those who changed the rules, not those who simply broke them. And Clara was no longer reacting to the world around her. She was shaping it, one silent decision at a time. She stayed in no town for long. Staying meant questions, and questions led to chains. She moved with the instinct of someone who knew survival was temporary unless it evolved into control. Every place taught her something new. Every encounter sharpened her understanding of people, especially men who believed they were untouchable. At night, she listened. In saloons, she learned the language of greed. At poker tables, she learned the rhythm of lies. In quiet rooms, she learned how easily men confessed when they thought no one important was listening. Information became more valuable than bullets, and Clara collected both. It was in a town near the border that she heard the symbol mentioned for the first time. Not spoken loudly, not explained. Just a word passed between two frightened men who didn't notice her nearby. A mark, a sign, something connected to women who survived when they were never meant to. Clara did not ask questions. Questions reveal intention. She waited, watched, and followed patterns instead. And patterns always lead somewhere. Soon she noticed the same sign etched into wood behind a boarding house. The same mark folded into a gambler's pocket letter. Always close to stories that ended badly. She began to understand she was not an exception. She was part of something the West refused to name. Women pushed to the edge, forced to become sharp enough to survive. Each one isolated, each one dangerous in her own way, and each one carrying the same quiet refusal to disappear. Clara trusted no one. Trust had nearly killed her once. She slept with one eye open, a gun within reach and her back to the wall. She learned that alliances in the West were temporary, and survival often meant walking alone, even when surrounded by people. One night a man tried to follow her. He was clumsy, drunk on confidence and whiskey. Clara did not run. She waited. When he reached for her arm, he learned the second law of the frontier. The West did not reward entitlement. It punished it. The sound carried far, but no one came. By morning, the town pretended nothing had happened. That was how the West worked. As long as the violence fit the unspoken rules, silence followed. Clara cleaned her hands, packed her things, and left before the sun fully rose. Another name added to another list no one kept. As days passed, the symbol appeared more often, sometimes scratched into a door, sometimes left as a drawing, sometimes mentioned only as a warning. Clara felt something unfamiliar growing beneath her caution. Not hope, not trust, recognition. The understanding that survival did not have to mean solitude forever. The idea unsettled her more than danger ever had. Depending on others meant exposure, weakness. But the thought returned again and again, carried by the same mark, the same stories, the same quiet promise. Somewhere there were others like her, and paths like that never cross by accident. Clara did not know where the road would lead. She only knew the West was changing, even if it refused to admit it. And soon, the choices she made alone would pull her towards something larger than revenge or escape. Toward a convergence the desert itself seemed to whisper about. Because the West was never meant to hold women like her. And when it finally tried to correct that mistake, it would find more than one waiting. It would find 7. Clara rode for days without direction, letting the land decide where she would stop. The desert had a way of guiding those who listened, and she had learned to listen well. Every mile carried the same question in silence. How many others had been forced to become something the world feared just to stay alive? She reached a trading post near the edge of disputed territory, the kind of place that attracted men with no past and no patience. As she dismounted, she felt it again. The presence, not danger, not threat, awareness. As if the air itself was watching her choose her next step. The room smelled of dust, sweat, and old whiskey. Conversations slowed when she entered. Eyes followed her movement, measuring, guessing, misjudging. Clara ignored them all. She had learned that attention only mattered when it turned into action, and she was prepared for that. That was when she saw the mark again. Small, almost careless, etched into the corner of the bar, half hidden by years of spilled drinks. The same symbol, the same silent signature. Clara felt something tighten in her chest, a feeling she had buried deep beneath caution. She sat alone, ordering nothing, listening to everything. A group of men spoke about a woman who had passed through weeks earlier, a saloon owner who ruled with a smile and left men ruined without firing a shot. They laughed nervously, as if joking might protect them from remembering too clearly. Clara said nothing, but the name stayed with her. Ruby Lane, spoken like a warning disguised as admiration. The description felt familiar, not the details, but the pattern. Another woman who had learned the same lesson the West had forced upon her. Later that night, Clara followed the road mentioned in the conversation. It led her through empty land, past broken fences and forgotten graves. The moon hung low, lighting her path just enough to remind her how exposed she truly was. Still, she rode on. Near dawn, she stopped at an abandoned outpost. Inside, the walls told stories through scars left by bullets and knives. And there, carved deep into the central beam, was the symbol again. Larger this time, deliberate, a message meant to be seen. Clara did not touch it. She did not smile. She simply understood. This was no coincidence. Someone had been here before her. Someone who wanted to be found, or at least wanted others like her to know they were not alone in this endless stretch of dust and consequence. As she rested, memories surfaced uninvited. Not of him, not of betrayal, but of the woman she had been before everything broke. The softness, the belief, the hope that survival did not require becoming hard. She pushed the thought away. The West punished softness without hesitation. When she rode again, her purpose had shifted. She was no longer just moving away from her past. She was moving towards something undefined, something dangerous in its possibility. The idea of others like her was unsettling, but it was also powerful. By the third night, she sensed she was no longer alone on the road. Not followed, not hunted, accompanied at a distance. A presence that did not rush, did not hide poorly. Someone skilled enough to remain unseen, unless they chose otherwise. Clara slowed her horse, hand near her weapon. She spoke without turning. Her voice was calm, steady, unafraid. The kind of voice that belonged to someone who had already accepted whatever came next. Silence answered her, thick and deliberate. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward just far enough to be known, not enough to be vulnerable. A woman, tall, still, watching Clara the way hunters watch storms on the horizon. No threat, no greeting. Just recognition. Neither reached for a gun. That was the first rule they silently agreed upon. The second was unspoken but heavier. Whatever this meeting meant, it was not meant to end here. Names were not exchanged. Trust was not offered. But the road had narrowed. As the stranger faded back into the dark, Clara felt the weight of the moment settle into memory. This was no accident. The West was drawing lines it could no longer erase, and soon, those lines would converge. Because when women like Clara Bell began to find one another, the frontier did not expand. It contracted, and something old and dangerous was about to be given a new home. The road led Clara to a place most maps refused to name, a stretch of land avoided by merchants, ignored by lawmen, and spoken of only in lowered voices. The kind of place where people went to disappear, or to become something the world no longer recognized. She saw the house before she reached it, isolated, weathered, standing against the desert wind like it had been abandoned by time itself. No fence, no sign, no welcome. Just a structure that looked less like shelter and more like defiance carved into wood and stone. Clara stopped at a distance. She had learned never to trust silence. Silence in the West was rarely empty. It watched, it waited. Her hand rested near her gun, not out of fear, but habit. Survival had rewritten her instincts beyond hesitation. As she approached, details emerged. Marks on the walls, old bullet scars, repairs done with care, not desperation. Someone had chosen to keep this place standing. Someone who understood what it meant to defend something without inviting attention. The air was cool and still. Dust floated in the light, cutting through cracked windows. The house felt lived in, but not occupied. Prepared, but not settled. Clara recognized the feeling immediately. This was not a home. It was a refuge for those who did not intend to stay weak. On the central table lay the symbol again, this time not hidden, not subtle, placed deliberately as if waiting for her. Clara did not touch it. She did not need to. The message was clear. She had arrived where she was meant to. She walked through the rooms slowly, noting every entrance, every shadow, every possible escape. Trust was earned through time, not coincidence. Yet something about the house felt familiar, not comforting, recognizing, as if it understood her without asking questions. As night fell, Clara heard movement outside. Not rushed, not careless. One presence became two, then more. She did not draw her weapon. She waited. Whatever came next was not meant to be stopped by fear. The first woman stepped into view with confidence shaped by power, her eyes sharp, her posture controlled. Clara recognized her immediately, even without an introduction. This was Ruby Lane, the woman whose influence traveled faster than her name. Another followed at a distance, silent, watching, her expression unreadable, the kind of stillness that came from discipline, not hesitation, a widow perhaps, or something worse. Clara felt no fear, only respect. They did not speak at first. Words would have been premature. Instead, they stood in shared understanding. Each had survived a world that tried to erase her. Each carried scars the West preferred not to count. More would come. Clara knew that with certainty. Different faces, different pasts, different sins, but the same refusal to disappear quietly. The house would not soften them. It would sharpen them against one another until only truth remained. Clara finally spoke, her voice calm and steady. Not a greeting, not a question, a statement shaped by experience. This place was not about safety. It was about consequence, about what happens when women like them stop running alone. No agreement was made that night, no promises exchanged. But something far more dangerous settled into the walls of the house. Intention, purpose, the understanding that the West had underestimated what it had created. By dawn, the legend would begin to spread. Not of one woman, not of an outlaw in red, but of a house standing against the frontier where women with nothing left to lose gathered and refused to be forgotten. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the West would soon learn a truth it had avoided for too long. It was never built only by men, and it would not survive what the 7 women were about to become.